independent. Better recognize I'm a king's descendant. If they wish to end us, then I bring the vengeance. You can't buy me with your rings of pendants, cause I'm independent. Better recognize I'm a king's descendant. If they wish to end us, then I bring the vengeance. You can't buy me with your rings of pendants. DIY gang, 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 DIY gang.
Hello and welcome to the DIY Gang Guide, your independent guide for the music industry. I'm Shao, you should know that already. Today we're going to talk about studio, the recording studio, the place where you make music, the place where you make your art. I get asked by fans who also make music quite a few times, how do I prepare for the studio? What do I do? You know, it's my first time going to the studio. How do I make sure I'm ready? Etc, etc. So I'm going to share that with you. Now, firstly, the studio is, and it can be, an expensive place. You know, often you're charged by hour, if not by day, and that's your money if you're independent. It's the record label's money if you're not, but it's somebody's money being spent. So ultimately, you want to make the best use of your time when you're there. You know, you don't go there to party, to drink, to faff about. Especially if it's a commercial studio, if it's your mate, it might be different, but I record in commercial studios. I record in studios where it's not mine, it's somebody I'm paying for their time. So I'm going to make sure I get the most out of my time and my money as well, because time is money. So if you go into the studio for the first time, that can be a daunting experience. You know, you don't know what to expect. Maybe you've recorded at home, maybe you've never recorded in your life. So a couple tips I find which are good and which are going to help you prepare. First and foremost, picking your studio. You know, you need to make sure that you get the right kind of studio to record in. And that comes down to numerous factors: the location, the look, the feel, you know, the general vibe of the studio really does make a difference. If it's in somebody's basement or whatever and there's a leaky pipe and it kind of smells of cheese, you're not going to be able to while out and do what you want to do in the best possible way. That's not to say that it's not impossible, but you know, try and find the best possible place for your money. You may only have a limited amount, so be careful with that. But don't go crazy. But at the same time, try and get somewhere that's nice, has good acoustics, and ultimately has somebody who knows what they're doing. Now that's really important. The engineer, the person behind the studio, it doesn't matter how amazing it looks. It could look straight out of a Dr. Dre video, but if the dude behind the desk doesn't know what they're doing, then you're not going to get a good sound. And there are several ways to check this. You know, if you want to be really thorough, you can ask for some examples of previously recorded stuff, you know, just very politely, whether it's via email or phone call or whatever, just ask, would you mind if I hear some stuff that's been produced from this studio? Looking for a particular sound. I just want to make sure it fits what I do. You know, that kind of thing. You don't have to be rude about it. Hopefully the person doesn't take offense. I don't see why they would. It's, you know, it's a reasonable question to ask. So have a listen to the sort of music that's coming out of the studio. If it sounds dope, if you think, yeah, this sounds professional, then there's a good chance that yours will too. Good chance, not definite. There's a lot of other factors, we'll get to that, but there's a good chance it will at least sound good. Price is also really important as well. Now, I've heard some horror stories about studios where people are paying like £300, £400, £500 for a day kind of stuff, and they're just getting basic recording. It's silly. There's no specific hard and fast rule to how much you should be paying for studio, but I do have general indicators I look out for. I personally think £20 an hour in London, that's kind of standard. £15 an hour is even better. If you can get a studio for £10 an hour, you're laughing. Think about the day rates as well, because sometimes people will try and pull a fast one. They'll offer you, let's say, £120 for a day, and their normal hourly rate is £10 an hour, and a day is like 6 hours or something like that. You know, that doesn't stack up. So just make sure that you've got your numbers correct and that you're not getting overcharged for nothing. Furthermore, if you're paying in a package, what does that package include? You know, if they're recording, mixing, mastering the track for a certain amount of money, that can be a good deal. But often people prefer to have it recorded and mixed by one person and mastered by another. So there are different factors to bear in mind, and I think sometimes getting the entire track recorded, mixed and mastered by one person, you're limiting the levels that the track can go to, because if you have somebody else mastering your track, you can get an almost different influence on it. And if you don't know what mixing and mastering is, we will talk about that in a different video, but hopefully you're following along with me with what I'm saying here. So yeah, some people prefer to get their tracks recorded and mixed with one person, mastered with another. Some people prefer the whole process to be different people. Some do it all with one person. It's entirely your choice. I would say experiment with different options. See what sound you're getting. Now that's really important. What sound do you get from the studio? You know, when the track is done, are you happy with this? You need to be very honest and critical. You need to be your biggest critic, ultimately, and not have this rose-tinted idea that ends you up on X Factor talking about I'm the best in the world and you sound like a strangled cat. You need to be very, very honest. When you listen to this music, does it realistically sound good? Can you hear this on the radio? If you put this up against a Jay-Z track, up against a Kendrick Lamar track, does this sound as good sonically, you know, or are the vocals too quiet? Or is the bass too loud? You know, these things are really important. You need to start training your ears to be able to listen to this sound and listen critically to your own work and know what is wrong with it, what is right with it. When it comes to my music, I'm such a perfectionist. I will sit there, headphones in, listen, then listen on a speaker, then go in my van and listen. And I will pick out things, I will write down the time signatures where I hear something that I don't like, I will get back to the engineer and I'll tell them. But that's because I've built up a relationship with the engineer. The person who records my music, who mixes it, he knows what I'm like, he knows what to expect from me. And that's why I continue to record with him. And that's a very important factor that I took into consideration when picking my studio. Do I get along with this person? Can I tell him I don't like the sound of this, and is he going to throw a hissy fit, or is he going to get on with what I need him to get on with? So that's also really important when picking your studio. Now, preparing for the studio, if this is your first time going, I would say learn the music. Learn what you're doing. We're assuming you're a rapper here. I mean, there are different rules for rock bands and stuff like that, but I'm not a rock band, so I'm going to be talking about lyricists, rappers, poets for now. If you want to know about bands, let me know and I can talk about that, because I know a little bit about that. But so learn your lyrics. You can read it off the paper, you can read it off your phone, but I always believe that if you've memorized it, it comes across so much more natural. You know, you can add little nuances in, you can add little things which you wouldn't be able to add if you were just reading it, because sometimes people actually you can hear when somebody's reading the lyrics, or at least I can sometimes, and you don't want that. You know, you want it to sound natural. All of my albums, I always learn the lyrics before I go in the studio and record them, just because I want it to sound like me, you know. So that's one tip I would give to you. Just take the time to learn the lyrics. Another thing which I find really helpful, actually, I have a Mac, so I've got GarageBand for free on there. One thing that has helped me before I go to the studio, I just do a rough recording. I don't even have like a home recording setup here. I really should, but I don't. I've just got a crappy microphone on my Mac, and I record my lyrics onto that, put it on the beat, just listen to it. And that, number one, helps me to learn the lyrics, because I'll listen to it over and over again. Number two, it gives me ideas, because once I've heard it recorded, no matter how rubbish it sounds, I start to think, oh, I could add this ad lib in here, or maybe I should have said this in this way, or maybe I can add this in on the hook, etc., etc. It just gives you ideas which if you were to go to the studio and record and spend your money, and then you think, I should have done that, you're gonna have to spend more money to go back. So this is just cutting out one process of spending money. It saves you a bit of time, saves you hopefully a lot of money, and it gets you used to the recording process. Make sure that you record on beat as well. I've heard so many rappers who, their first time recording, they just kind of just say stuff. They're just talking it over the beat, and it's not even on beat. Again, you need to be very honest and critical with yourself, and that development of that honesty is something that you need as an independent musician, because if you can't look at your own work and say, no, that's not good enough, then you are going to set yourself up for some failure in the future. So listen very critically to your rough recording. Work out, is it on beat? Is it on point? Are the lyrics right? Do I need to rewrite this? prepare yourself as much as possible before you go to the studio. So when you go in there, you're like, I know exactly what I'm doing. And you can bang out a track in half an hour and have time to do something else. Instead of going there for the first time and being like, what do I do? Or let me, all of that. You just want to go in there and bang it out because this is your time and money. So those are a few tips I have for preparing for the studio. There are a lot more, but I think for now that will give you at least a little bit of a basis. So to reiterate, make sure that you pick your studio very carefully. If there's pictures on the website, have a look at that. Even if you get a chance to go down and visit, that's all very important. Find an engineer that you feel comfortable with, that you can work with. Somebody who will give you advice when you're recording. That's really, me and my engineer have a really good back and forth. I will ask him honestly when I've recorded something, does that sound good or do you think I could do it better? He will often suggest, why don't you add this in? And those little outside tips really help. So find an engineer who you've got a good rapport and relationship with. Find a studio where they're not trying to overcharge you or trying to hustle you out of all of your money. Like I said, £15 an hour, that's a good rate in London. £20 an hour, kind of standard. £30 an hour, you can get in high-end studios. I think that's a bit much. I think when you're first starting out, there's no real reason to be spending big man money on high-end studios. You really want to get the experience. So £15 to £20 an hour is decent. If you can get £10 an hour, that's fantastic. Any less than that, it's probably a mate. Otherwise, I would, if it's £5 an hour, I'd be a little worried about the quality that's coming out. On that note, listen to the quality that's coming out of the studio. Listen very critically to the work that you've done. If you have to go back and re-record it at a different studio, so be it, but you don't want to put out subpar quality. So listen to the quality that's coming out either from the work that you've done with them or from work that they've done with other people. And finally, prepare yourself beforehand. Learn your lyrics. Do rough recordings if you have the availability and the software. Even if you do it on your phone, for instance, I'm sure if you've got a smartphone, you've got a recording function. Put the music on, record yourself doing it, do it several times, listen back, listen to the best ones. What did I like from this? What did I like from that? Constantly improve on it. Get yourself a solid rough recording. Listen to it for a day or so, couple days. Go into the studio and bang it out. So there we go. There's just a few of my thoughts on best ways to prepare for the studio, to prepare yourself for recording your music. As usual, please make sure to subscribe to the Shao Music YouTube channel in order to be kept up to date with these videos and to know when the next one's going to come out. If you have any questions, comments, if you want any subjects in particular covered in future videos, make sure to hit the comment section on YouTube, leave that comment, I will read them and I will take my time to reply whenever possible. So, this has been the DIY Gang Guide. Hopefully it's helped you. Till next time, keep it independent, keep it DIY Gang. Peace.